Alrighty, Utah fans, this is Jed Wonderly with the Utah Sports Report, and this week we will be talking about the complete and utter domination of Utah over Stanford. That'll just be a little part of it. The main part is going to be talking about the upcoming game against a very hot Arizona team. They have won one in a row after losing 20 in a row. So put that in perspective. So anyway, we'll be back after this with episode 13 and see you on the other side.
And they'll run it, Jordan! Ty Jordan! See you later! Touchdown, Utah!
4 seconds, 3 seconds. Back to Van Dyke, deep three up. And good! It's good!
They just need this to finish their best beam rotation of the year. And looking forward, it says, get on your feet.
Alrighty, Utah fans and anybody else who happens to be watching this, I wanted to throw a few statistics your way because I'm kind of a math guy. I'm kind of a stat guy. I kind of dig that stuff. And it certainly makes the case for utter and complete domination. So let's get started. Ooh, do you like my new Utah shirt? 22% honoring Ty and Aaron Lowe. Gotta love it, gotta love it. Finally came in. Glad to have it. So here we are. 581. That's the number of yards Utah gained. 441. The number of yards Utah gained on the ground with their 140 yards through the air passing. That, passing didn't need to pass a lot because our run game was so dominant this time. And has been getting very dominant, 290 even against UCLA the week before. And they had a really good run defense. So, 2 really good weeks in a row for our offensive line and for Tavion Thomas, who got 177 yards. And for the second week in a row, he had 4 touchdowns. And he did that the 4 touchdowns anyway in the first half. So fantastic performance. Additionally, 3. It's another good number. 3 running backs had over 100 yards. That does not happen very often. In fact, I think I read something where it's been 25 years since that's happened in the Pac-12. Pretty rare. Pledger also had a touchdown. He broke the record, Utah's record for longest touchdown from scrimmage, 96 yards. And you had a fantastic job by Mekhi Bernard, who got over 100 yards and had a touchdown. The final touchdown of the game, in fact. So, fantastic. The defense did an amazing job as well. Granted, they're playing a bit of a depleted Stanford offense with Stanford's top 3 receivers out of the game with injury, and their starting quarterback also missed this game. Their backup quarterback, who did play and was 12 for 18, he actually was the starting quarterback at the beginning of the year. So there is that, but there's a reason why he's not starting, and that's because their current starting quarterback appears to be a fair bit better. But that said, Utah turned in a dominant performance on the defensive side of the ball as well, holding Stanford to 167 yards, 85 through the air, and 82 on the ground at 2.6 yards per carry. And I believe the passing stat was like 3.7 yards per game, per attempt on the passing side. So really, really good game in all facets for Utah. We're going to talk about the Arizona game on the other side of these highlights. So stay tuned. Be right back.
The Cardinal, Tucker Fisker plays tight end for them. 12th run play of the game, and it's another touchdown for Tavion Thomas. Get it right back to Thomas. And Thomas makes no mistake. Number 4 for Thomas in the first half.
year. You really couldn't say that they haven't been this year.
Rising in the Utes offense. Right back where they started, and goodbye, T.J. Pletcher. Will he be caught? Caillou Blue Kelly unable to touch him. 96 yards for T.J. Pletcher and Utah.
All righty, Utah fans, hope you enjoyed those fantastic highlights. The upcoming opponent, Arizona, is a team that plays very hard. They've actually stayed with a number of teams that they've played, including Oregon. They were only down 24-19 to Oregon going into the fourth quarter, and Oregon outscored them 17-0 to make that score a little more respectable as far as Oregon is concerned. They were also relatively close with UCLA for a little while, and a number of their other opponents as well. The only team that has beat them by more than what our point spread is Colorado at Colorado. Now, we're favored to win by 24, and I know we can do it, and I hope we can do it. But you never know. You never know. I'm pretty sure that Arizona is going to be fired up and after that victory and trying to carry that momentum. You know, if you can call one game having momentum, but it is a big turnaround from the 20-game losing streak they had before that. So, and it's at their home in Tucson, Arizona. They're going to be fired up, and they're going to be taking on the number one team in the division, and I'm sure that's going to also add a little fuel to the fire. But we need to come out and assert ourselves. The offensive line has been dominant the last few games, and hopefully they will continue to improve. Hopefully Miley's snaps will be a little bit better. Cam actually had a fumble in the game against Stanford because of an errant snap by Miley. And hopefully, I'd love to see a little more balance. Some of those runs were amazing, and it was really fun to watch. We had so many runs that were 9-10 yards or more. We had several that were 20-plus yards, and 58-yard touchdown run by Tavion. He had a couple of others runs, 18 to 20-plus yards. Mackay had, I think a handful of them himself, and then of course Pledger had that 96-yarder, which is a Utah record. So while that's all fun, I also like to see the passing game doing well, and I'd love to see a little bit more balance. I'd love to see 250 yards plus on each of those parts of the offense, and love to see another 500-plus yard game. However, Arizona is averaging, giving up, I believe it's 356 yards a game. Let me see. Yeah, 356.1 yards a game, and they're giving up 28.6 points per game. So they have a decent defense. They've been playing well. Oregon did put 41 on them, and like I said earlier, 17 of that was in the fourth quarter. And now on the other side of the ball, no pun intended, Utah for the season is averaging 434.8 yards per game and 35.4 points per game. But over the last 5 games, we're averaging 41.4 points per game. I'd like to see that go up. And we're also averaging 489.2 yards per game over the last 5 games. So we've really stepped it up over the last 5 games, which includes, unfortunately, our lone conference loss to Oregon State. Now, with that being said, 24 points is the spread on the road. Can we do it? I think we can. I think the way our offense and our offensive line is playing, I think, you look at UCLA, they were averaging giving up 94 yards in rushing per game, and we put 290 on them. So, that tells me that we can put a hurt on Arizona, I believe. I also think that it's about time that the passing side of of the offense had a little bit more of a breakout game, I hope. Although I think, if we're running over Arizona, I don't see Witt opening up the throw game all that much. So just depending on how our running game does, if we're anywhere near as dominant in this game as we were against Stanford, plan on a lot of running. I certainly think we have the ability to go into Arizona and do somewhat like we did against Stanford. Saying it's going to be 52-7 again might be a stretch, but Arizona is averaging only 16 points per game. I'd certainly like to see us hold them below that average. They're also only averaging 352 yards per game on offense, so I'd love to see us hold them below that as well. I'd love to, Stanford got 167 yards. I'd love to keep them to something in the, 200s at least. I don't expect to keep them below 200, but it would be nice to keep them below 300 for sure. And then if we can, if we can beat that spread and do it by pulling away from the very beginning instead of, having to, have a really good second half or a really good fourth quarter in order to do that, to put the game away. That's not what I'm looking forward to, because I know I'll be a little antsy if they're close going into the fourth quarter. So I am going to say, because I'm a huge fan and I'm very biased towards Utah, I am going to say that we are going to win and beat the spread. So there you have it. That's my call. And, gotta love that shirt, huh? Gotta love that shirt. Had to show that off a little bit. Finally came in and got it the other day. Now, other games this week. Stanford is a dog by 12.5 points to Oregon State. Yeah, unless they get a bunch of their receivers back and their starting quarterback back, which they may, I'm going to go with Oregon State to win for sure, regardless. But I think they'll beat the spread if Stanford doesn't get some of those people back. Oregon State's got a very good rushing game. Stanford, not a very good rushing defense. That, like what we did to them, I think Oregon State might do something like that to them as well. And this one's at Oregon State, so that's even one more benefit that they have that we didn't. My big game of the week for the Pac-12, other than the Utah game, which is always the game of the week, is Arizona State at Washington. Now, Arizona State typically doesn't play well in cold or rainy weather. Cold, rainy weather together is not a good recipe for Arizona State typically. I'm hoping for some cold, rainy weather up in Washington. And I'm hoping that regardless of the weather, that Washington takes them out, because when we beat Arizona and when Washington beats Arizona State, that will clinch our the South Division, our bid for the South Division. We'll be 6-1 at that point, and we hold the tiebreaker. So, and I certainly don't expect us to lose the next two games, Oregon and Colorado. At the very least, I think we're going to beat Colorado, and FPI has us thinks that we're going to beat Oregon. I think they're at about 63-64% favoring us to win. So there you have that. Colorado is at UCLA. UCLA is favored by 17 points. They're coming off a bye. I believe they're coming off a bye. I think UCLA is probably going to cover the spread on that. Oregon is at home against Washington State. This one's interesting because Washington State's 4-2 in conference, and Oregon's 5-1. Now, we know that Washington State is without their head coach, who they fired, a few weeks ago, and along with four other coaches who got fired with him. And so they're still on a very skeleton. They have a very, a skeleton coaching staff, and yet they've played pretty well over the last few games. Their first game under those circumstances was a loss against BYU, but a close one, 21-19. And they've won since then. So at 4-2, if they beat Oregon, they'll be 5-2, as will Oregon. But Washington State will hold the tiebreaker, so I'm thinking that would be interesting. However, as a Utah fan, I'm looking forward to the next week when we play Oregon, and I want Oregon to be as highly ranked as possible, which means I want them to win because I want to beat a very highly ranked Oregon team so that we move up further in the rankings. Then what should be the last game of this week, USC at California, has been postponed because apparently California's COVID situation has gotten worse, and so they're postponing that game until the day after the Pac-12 championship game. So there you have it. Oregon's favored, by the way, over Washington State by 14 points. The way Washington State has been playing, I think at the very least, I would pick Washington State to beat that spread. And, it's going to be interesting to see if possibly they can go ahead and even beat Oregon. But again, I'm hoping for Oregon in that one because of the rankings and what I want it to be for Utah. By the way, I'm looking, it's going to be cloudy and 54 degrees in Washington, hoping maybe some rain will happen, but it's looking like just cloudy. So anyway, that's my report. I appreciate you watching. Please like, subscribe, and share your thoughts with me down in the comments section. I'd really appreciate it. And the liking and subscribing really helps the YouTube algorithm so that other Utah fans can find this content on YouTube. So it really helps me out if you do that, so I appreciate it. And we'll be back next week with a recap of this week's game and then talking about the big game on the 20th between Utah and Oregon. Until then, thanks for watching, and go Utes!